Hi students, welcome. And in this video, what I am doing is I am making a refresher. That is revising the important aspects of all the chapters of class 8 ICSE board so that it becomes very easy for them, very convenient for them when they revise the entire syllabus before the exams, before the annual exams. So to start with, it is transport in plants, chapter 1. So, in this chapter, the transportation means, as you all know, that the substances which are synthesized or absorbed in plants are carried from one part of the plant to the other part of the plant. So, it is the transportation in plants. So, here you have to remember about the names, about the two parts, that is xylem and phloem. Okay, xylem is conducting water and minerals from the soil to the aerial part of the plant. So here four tissues are there in the xylem: tracheids, xylem vessels, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. So tracheids and xylem vessels are the main conducting tubes. You have to remember always. And tracheids are tapering at both the ends, and xylem vessels are one above the other, arranged like this, and they are also helping in carrying the water upwards. So this is tracheids and vessels. Xylem parenchyma is preparing food and storing food, and fibers are for the mechanical support in the bundle. So that is the xylem vascular bundle. Similarly, you have to remember about the phloem, which is translocating the prepared food to other parts of the plant from the leaves. Phloem contains what other tissues? It contains your seed tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, phloem fiber. So remember one thing, that in the xylem bundle, all the tissues are dead except xylem parenchyma, and in phloem bundle, all the tissues are living except xylem fiber. Okay, so this is the main conducting, which is the main conducting tube in phloem, which is translocating the food or the solute. It is the sieve tubes. Okay, these tube-like structures and connected to one another by sieve plates. So you have to remember these names, children, always in this chapter. And then xylem phloem, and you have to remember these points. And then when it comes to the question of absorption of water by the root hair, how it is being done. So that is also you have to remember in this chapter: osmosis, diffusion, and active transport, by which the water is entering into the root hairs. So osmosis is, if you recollect, water from its higher concentration entering to its lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane is osmosis, and diffusion is same, from water from its higher concentration to lower concentration without any membrane. So in the root hair cell, the cell wall is there freely permeable, cell membrane is semi-permeable, so osmosis can take place, diffusion also can take place, and active transport is for the bigger molecules which are entering the root hair cells from the soil, from their lower concentration to the higher concentration, and the energy required is obtained from the cells only. So this is active transport. So by these three processes mainly, water is entering from the soil along with minerals into the root hair cells. Now root hair cells are adapted to absorb the water, to receive the water and minerals, because they are enormous in number, and that is why they have more surface area for absorption, right? So these are the adaptations of these root hairs, why they are better suited, okay, to absorb water. So this also you have to remember, why root hairs are there, why root hairs are better suited for this function, because there are numerous root hairs are there for more surface area. Root hairs contain higher concentration of the solution inside because already there are minerals present, already there are sugar molecules, so the concentration is very high inside. So naturally water from its higher concentration in the soil can enter into the root hair which is having a lower concentration of water because the solution is very concentrated. Okay, understood? Diffusion can also easily take place, and cell wall is freely permeable, so there is no obstacle from the cell wall, and cell membrane is semi-permeable, so osmosis can easily take place. Okay, so this is how the root hairs are specially suited for the absorption of water. Now, there are figures in your book, there are diagrams, you have to identify, you have to label also, and learn the labeling. So, there are figures of movement of water along with minerals in a plant from the root hair. So, from the root hair, they enter into the cortex of the root, and then by diffusion, cell to cell diffusion, and also by root pressure sometimes in smaller plants, the water is pushed forward. The water enters the other cells, and it reaches the cortex of the root and then the stem of the root. From the base of the stem, it is pulled up by xylem because of the transpiration pull, right? Because of the transpiration, there is a pull generated. There is a suction force which generates the pull, and it drives the water and minerals upwards in the xylem. So this is also about root pressure. Pressure is created in the root hairs, in the root cortex. Especially in the root cortex, gradually and slowly, a pressure is created because of the diffusion of water and minerals cell to cell. So this root pressure also helps the water to be pulled upwards in the stem. So like this, these are the factors which you have to remember, and then transpiration is another mode of carrying water in form of in form of water vapors. So this is a process where excess water is lost, okay, in form of water vapor from the aerial parts of the plant. So this transpiration generates transpiration pull, as I said just now. So it is so important for pulling the water and minerals upwards in the aerial part of the tree. Just imagine the trees of 200 meters and 300 meters tall, where how the water is reaching to the top of the tree because of this transpiration pull. So transpiration is so important, and it is also making the presence of water minerals in all parts of the plant. It is also keeping the plant cool because water vapors, when they are formed, the temperature goes down. So naturally, the plants will be cool, and then the other advantages of transpiration that you have to remember. These are the main advantages or usefulness of transpiration. Main is the capillary force. The water is raised upwards because of the capillary force during transpiration, which is created. So water is pulled up. Okay, so xylem, phloem, you have to remember the differences also, the components, name of the components, the movement, direction of the movement. Xylem upwards only, phloem upwards, downwards, both the directions, right? And conductive tubes in xylem, conductive tubes in phloem. So all these you have to always remember. factor affecting the transpiration, which can be the factors? This also can be a question. So naturally, if the temperature is high, the rate will increase because water vapors will be produced more. If the temperature is low, the rate will go down, rate of transpiration will go down. If humidity is there, there will be no space for the vapors to be accommodated in that local area. So that is why the rate of transpiration will go down. Okay. So these are the factors. Wind, if the wind is there, transpiration rate will increase but because the vapors created will be moved faster from that place to some other place, so there will be space for new vapors from for more vapors to be accommodated, so the rate will increase. And the water vapors move away faster with the wind, that is how the rate will increase. And other things that which are there in this chapter, uses the water. Water is used in transportation. Water and minerals are going inside. Food production, water is necessary for with carbon dioxide for the photosynthesis, cooling, heat utilized when water is transpired. When transpiration takes place, heat is utilized. Okay, and from the surface of the leaves in the form of water vapor induces a cooling effect. The cooling effect is there because heat is consumed, so naturally cooling will be there. And the importance of minerals also you have to understand. The macronutrients in plants are what? They are the nitrogen, magnesium, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Nitrogen is important for protein formation. Phosphorus P is also important for certain proteins and is the constituent of cell membrane. Potassium K is important for the opening and closing of stomata and more abundant in growing tissues, potassium. So these are the macronutrients, and in minerals, and the micronutrients are iron, manganese, and zinc. Iron is important for some proteins. Manganese is important for enzymes, and zinc is constituent of plant hormones. So these you have to remember, students. There can be some questions regarding the importance of minerals or nutrients in plants. Okay, macronutrients and micronutrients. Right. Okay. So the next chapter I come to is reproduction in plants. So it is, you have to remember the asexual mode of reproduction and also the sexual mode. In asexual mode, what are the modes? They are the binary fission, the multiple fission, the budding, okay, and the fragmentation, the regeneration, so vegetative propagation. So all these points, modes of asexual reproduction, where a single parent is required and reproduction is taking place by the cell division only. So binary fission, splitting into two, like in amoeba, like in bacteria, and multiple fission, splitting into many new nuclei and daughter cells, that is in plasmodium. And in budding, a separate bud it matures and it is separated, and then a new organism develops, that is in yeast. It is very common. Okay, fragmentation, fragment like structures are there in algae like rhizopas, and there one fragment will become mature, it will get separated and new algae will grow, that is fragmentation. Regeneration, any part is cut and again it will be regenerated. And this spore formation is also very common in asexual mode of reproduction. In fungi, the spore production is very common in bread mold, etc., where spores are stored in sporangium, and when the sporangium bursts, the spores come out and they can give rise to new fungi in favorable conditions. Okay, so this is the asexual mode, and vegetative reproduction is very, very common because any part of the plant like stem, leaves and roots can be vegetative and new plants can be produced. So from stem, potato tubers are produced, and from root, carrot and gingers are produced, and from the leaf, new plant develops from the margin of the leaf, that is in bryophyllum. So this is vegetative propagation. Now the artificial vegetative propagation is very common, like cutting, layering, grafting, etc., which are very common in use nowadays. Okay, so in vegetative propagation, the advantage is that it takes shorter period of time, wastage is less, okay, and more crops can be obtained, more yield can be obtained. But the disadvantage is that the same kind of characters are repeated. New species is very difficult to evolve. So that is the disadvantage of vegetative propagation. And now the this artificial propagation is very common. Artificial vegetative propagation, as I said, cutting, layering, grafting, all small points are there. You go through and you will revise these points. And this micro propagation is also very common, which is a vegetative propagation. If vegetative propagation is not possible in a plant, then tissue of vegetative buds, shoot apex, or any other suitable part of the plant can be used as an explant for micro propagation. The explants are treated with sterilization chemicals to prevent microbial growth and then cultured. Actually, this special part of the plant taken is cultured in a special environment. Some hormones are also added there. So a mass grows, that is called the callus, and this callus is again cultured in a regulators, some growth regulators like plant hormones, into plant parts looking like a tiny plant called plantlet. So this callus, grows into plantlets when some growth regulators are added there in that culture. So that plantlet will develop from this callus, and these plantlets are again transferred to a bigger space where they are fastly developed, and they can use to be develop and multiply disease-free stock. So this is the advantage of this. Benefits of plant tissue culture technique: it provides rapid propagation of identical individuals. This technique is very productive for superior varieties. It is very useful in cases where seeds are dormant. It is very useful in cases where seeds are dormant, when seeds are not active. The embryo in these seeds can be cultured and micro-propagated. These are the advantages of the micro-propagation. If the question is there, you can answer them. And what are the limitations of tissue culture? It requires a lot of scientific experience. It cannot be applied to all cases. It is not easily applicable in remote agriculture areas. Okay. Now come to sexual reproduction. Here the male reproductive part is stamen, the female reproductive part is the pistil. So the stamen, anther and filament is there. In the anther, pollen grains are there. When the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of the same flower or the different flowers of the same species, then what will happen? Pollination will happen. So the pollen grains are the male gametes in plants, and the female gametes are the egg or ovum, which is there in the ovule in the ovary. So the pollination has to take place, whether self-pollination or cross-pollination. If the flower is bisexual, it will be self-pollination, and if it is unisexual, then two different flowers have to be there of the same species. So in cross-pollination, some pollinating agents are required, like insects, like birds, like animals, like water. But in self-pollination, simply, it is a very simple process. The pollen grains of the same flower fall on the stigma easily, maybe by a little wind. So that is why no extra agents are required. Now self-pollination, with self-pollination, you will get the same quality of yield generation after generation. No, new species is very difficult to get, but in cross-pollination you can have newer varieties. Okay, if newer varieties and new species can also be developed. So these are the advantage of cross-pollination over self-pollination. And if in self-pollination, if some weakness or some disease is there in the parent plant, same will be propagated to the progeny also, to the newer plants also. Okay. So pollination is a process in which pollen grains from the anthers are transferred to the stigma of a flower of the same species. Right? So it can be self-pollination or it can be cross-pollination. So other things, pollinating agents are required for cross-pollination, as I said, can be insects, animals, etc. Can be water. So you have to remember the names, certain names. Okay. So if it is insect pollinated, then the petals have to be colorful and large so that to attract the insects, and also the flower should have nectar so that the insects come for food. Okay, and these produce sticky pollen grains so that they may stick to the body parts of the insect. So these are the characteristics of insect pollinated flowers, right? And for wind pollination, when wind is the agent of cross pollination, it is called wind pollination. So there can be characteristics of wind pollination. They are usually small and are of dull colors. They don't attract insects. They generally have long anthers. They produce a large quantity of pollen. Okay, and water pollination is also taking place in some plants like Vallisneria. Okay, so they have to be aquatic. Basically, these are aquatic plants whose male flowers are submerged in water to start with, get discharged when mature. Male flowers get mature. This is very interesting. This you have to remember in aquatic plants, and float on the surface of water. When these floating male flowers happen to come in contact with the female flower, the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma. So this is pollination, different kinds of pollination, and after pollination has taken place, what will happen? The pollen grains are there on the stigmas, so some chemical reaction will take place there, with the help of some enzymes, and some sugary substance is also there at the tip of the stigma, and the pollen grains will develop a pollen tube through which the nucleus of the male gamete of this sperm nucleus will be there, will be carried through the pollen tube into the ovule through the micropyle, and this sperm nucleus, which is coming down through the pollen tube, will divide into two. So one nucleus will fuse with the egg cell that is there at the base of the ovule and form the zygote, and the other nucleus will fuse with the polar nuclei, two polar nuclei in the center. So there are three fusions and two fertilization. So it is the double fertilization in plants. One at the base with the egg, sperm nucleus will fuse with the egg or ovum, that will form the zygote, and the other nucleus will fuse with the two polar nuclei in the center. So there are three fusions and two fertilizations. So this is a double fertilization, and figures are there. You have to just label the figures and identify the labels in these diagrams. Okay. And after fertilization, what happens? The other parts fall off, and the ovary becomes the fruit, and the ovule becomes the seed. Again, the seed germinates into newer plants or baby plants. So this is about the reproduction in plants, and you have to skip reproduction in humans because this chapter has been deleted this year. And ecosystems, you have to always remember about certain components of ecosystem, that is biotic, abiotic, and decomposers. because they together form an ecosystem of a place. Can be land, can be river, can be forest or mountains. So these biotic component is all living organisms which are dependent on one another. In as food chain is and food waves are formed for dependence for food, and uh, interdependence on one another is there in the biotic factors. And in abiotic is the all physical, you know, the non-living substances around us, all this air, water, land. Okay, so these are non-living or physical matters which are around us. We are dependent on them also, because without them survival is not possible. So they are also a component, essential component of the ecosystem. And then the decomposers, which are decomposing the dead plants and animals, so that there is no decaying plants and animals on the earth. And also they are what they are doing, they are again returning back the nutrients to the soil from the dead plants and animals. So very interestingly, you have to go through these parts, students, of all your chapters, the important ones. Okay, so there can be ecosystem in the forest, there can be ecosystem in the land, and also in the water. That is aquatic ecosystem. And components I discussed just now, abiotic are all these the non-living components like the sunlight, water, temperature, soil, etc. But ecosystem cannot run without them. Now food chain, the producer is plant and others are consumers. So if the grass is the producer, then grasshopper is eating the grass, and frog is eating the grasshopper, and snake is eating the frog, and the snake is eaten by the hawk. So these are interdependence, a linear sequence of dependence for food, and producer is grass. This is the food chain, and the organisms in every stage is the tropic level. So tropic level 1 is the grass, the producer. Tropic level 2 is the small herbivore, that is the grasshopper. And tropic level 3 is the frog, is the bigger herbivore, and then a bigger animal, and then the frog is eaten by the snake, a bigger carnivore. And the hawk is eating the snake, that is the biggest, large your carnivore. Snake is the bigger carnivore, and the hawk is the large carnivore. So like this, the chain is continuing, food chain. From tropic level 1 to 2, 3, 4, like this it continues. So it cannot go beyond 5, because in every tropic level 10% energy transfer is there, which is the law of 10%. Only 10% energy is transferred to the next tropic level, to the animal of the next tropic level. So it is only about 5 tropic levels only. So this is food chain. Okay, in a book the chain has been maintained, has been shown, from green plant to grasshopper to frog to snake to eagle. Okay, so this is forming a pyramid also, which is called the food pyramid. And your food chain and food waves. Food waves in the same producer, a number of food. If the producer is one and number of food chains are different food chains are there, so number of food chains are arising. So that is food wave. But these food chains are culminating or uniting at a one tropic level. So that is the food wave. Okay. So about food wave also. Food wave is a network of interconnecting food chains in a natural community of different organisms. So there are some tropic level they are interconnecting. Okay. So these food chains. So that is called a food wave. Food pyramid also you understood. like grass eaten by deer and then deer eaten by tiger. So this will form a pyramid which is called a food pyramid. And interdependence between organisms is also there in the ecosystem, like parasites and saprophytes and the symbiosis. Uh, Symbiosis is a mutual benefit, like in lichen, the algae is getting shelter from the fungi and fungi is getting food from the algae. So that is the interdependence. Parasitism, parasites, the uh, your all these bacteria, fungi, malarial parasite, plasmodium, these are all the parasites, they are living in the man's stomach. So they are dependent on the food that we are taking, so they are all parasites. Saprophytes are decaying or dead plants and animals, especially bacteria, fungi. Okay, flora, what is flora, what is fauna? Flora is what flora means the plants mutually occurring. The plants naturally occurring, the plants which are naturally occurring in a particular area, and similarly fauna means the animals. The flora means plants occurring in a naturally occurring in an area, and fauna, always remember, means animals naturally occurring in a specific area. So flora, fauna, evergreen trees, bamboos, ferns, shrubs are flora. Fauna are jungle cats, leopards, monkeys, that you all can understand. And forests are also of different types that you have to remember in a book, it is there. So in questions come, so you should be able to answer them. Any form question can come in MCQ also. Gir Forest, Jim Corbett National Park, Jaldapara Sanctuary, all these are forests. Okay. There are coniferous forests also. In Himalayas they are found at the altitude about 1700 to 3000 meters. Flora is fir and pine trees. In every forest there will be flora, there will be fauna. So you have to remember the flora and fauna in these different kind of forests, right? Tropical rainforest, temperate deciduous forest. I think 2, 3, if you remember, it will do because they are important. Like temperate deciduous forest, flora is teak, sandalwood, sal, etc., and fauna is moths, beetles, deer, wolves, foxes, etc. Okay, so this completes this chapter. Only thing is that there is a note, there is an important piece also, that is risk to ecosystem. What are the risks? Risk is deforestation, risk is the heavy industries which are coming up, risk is all these toxic gases that are emitted by the countless vehicles that we are driving. So they are creating a greenhouse effect, and all these toxic gases are there as a cover in the atmosphere, and the heat of the earth is not going out, and that is why there is a global warming. And the carbon dioxide consumption is going down because trees are being cut, and so number of trees are also being reduced drastically, and there is excess of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere which is making it toxic because the trees are not consuming, trees are not there, so how can they consume carbon dioxide for the process of photosynthesis? So we need to be aware of these facts, and we should encourage always plantation of new plants, trees. Okay, and we should not allow deforestation as far as possible, and we should be dutiful to save the ecosystems. We should do our duties as well as possible. Endocrine system, the main things to remember is the endocrine means ductless glands, and they are pouring their secretion, their hormones at the required place. So the difference between hormone and enzymes are the hormone place of formation and place of action is different. In enzymes, place of formation and place of action is same. So this is all are proteins, okay, but this is the main difference. And these glands are endocrine glands are ductless glands. So what are the glands you have to remember? Main important glands, that is the thyroid gland, which is secreting thyroxine, and thyroxine is made up of iodine. So areas where iodine is deficient in the food, the goiter, that is the hyposecretion of thyroxine is very common, which is known as goiter. And the other side is the excess oversecretion of thyroxine, which is also causing complications. Okay, so the oversecretion of the undersecretion will cause simple goiter. The simple goiter, neck will swell, and there will be other problems also, and cretinism will be there, an element which brings about abnormal development in an infant. This results in both physical and mental retardation in cretinism and in myxoedema, a condition seen in adult when a sufficient amount of thyroxine is insufficient amount of thyroxine is produced. That is a condition called myxoedema. It shows general sluggishness with swelling on the face and hands. So hands and face will swell and general weakness will be there. So that is myxoedema. Edema means swelling, and over-secretion of thyroxine causes an increased metabolic rate. So they are basically responsible for the basic metabolic rate, BMR. So if the over-secretion is there, the metabolic rate will increase, and this is because of the over-secretion. Okay, there will be red eyes, protruding eyeballs, etc. will be the other symptoms. Now, after this, adrenal glands are there. So, adrenal cortex, adrenal medulla, adrenal glands are at the tip of the kidneys, and adrenal cortex secretes the mineralocorticoid and the glucocorticoid hormones, which are responsible for the metabolism of all these macronutrients, fat, protein, and carbohydrates. And also, mineralocorticoid means all the minerals, etc. The metabolism of this is they are responsible. So glucocorticoid is very important, and mineralocorticoid is also very important. So this is secreted. These hormones are secreted by the adrenal cortex, and adrenal medulla is secreting the fight or flight hormone. In the situations where we have to decide to fight or to run away or to flight, in very emergency situations, okay, so these hormones secreted by the adrenal medulla help us in tackling this situation of fight or flight. Okay, so that is adrenal gland. And then the pancreas is having double function, exocrine as well as endocrine. Exocrine means that is they are secreting the pancreatic juices, which are having digestive enzymes for the digestion of protein, of the maltose, and also of the fat. So these are the digestive enzymes, and the other small region in the pancreas is called the islet of Langerhans. It is secreting a hormone which is called insulin. Some hormones it is secreting, insulin and glucagon. Insulin is regulating the conversion of starch into the glucose into glycogen, and glucagon is controlling the conversion of glycogen into glucose whenever required. So this conversion, if it is impaired, if the proper conversion is not taking place, then excess of sugar will be there. So insulin is deficient. So that is why the condition which is produced will be the diabetes, where the excess of sugar will be there in the blood, because insulin is not sufficiently produced, and that is why the glucose is not being converted into glycogen. So this is the pancreatic hormone. Okay. Diagrams are there in a book, the pancreatic gland, the adrenal gland. You should always identify the diagrams and the labelings. Okay? And pituitary gland is the master gland. Pituitary gland is the master gland. It is secreting number of hormones like your growth hormone, which is growth is very important for all the living organisms. And in human, it is the HGH, human growth hormone, secreted by pituitary, and then follicle secreting stimulating hormone is there is also is also essentially required in the reproductive systems, and your thyroid stimulating hormone TSH is also secreted by pituitary, and the other hormones are also there, your gonadotropin hormones, okay, glucocorticoid. So all these hormones are being secreted by pituitary. That is why it is called the master gland. Growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, which influences the production of sperms in males and the ova or eggs in females. Okay, prolactin stimulates the breast to produce milk after childbirth. So ADH, antidiuretic hormone, all these hormones are secreted by pituitary. And so pituitary is so important. It is known as the master gland. Okay. And about adolescence, so you have to study all the changes that you have to remember, all the changes that take place during adolescence, change in body shape, change in voice, increased activity of sweat and sebaceous glands. These points you have to remember. Okay. The importance of personal hygiene, it is also very important to remember. For good health, personal hygiene is required. Proper and safe food, proper lifestyle. Okay. Stress is a state, mental or emotional strain, and in very simple terms, it can be called tension. Stress is our body's way of responding to any kind of demand. It can be caused by both good and bad experiences. So these small points are very important. This you have to remember. How to manage stress? Yoga is one of the latest measures which is reducing stress significantly. Weight reduction, improved athletic performance, okay, proper sleep schedule, reading, thinking, positively laughing. All these are measures to reduce stress. Deep breathing, meditation, time management, hobbies, etc. Okay, so this we come to the end of this chapter, students, and then we go to the circulatory system. So, circulatory system, we have to remember that what is being circulated, blood and lymph. Blood is red because it is the fluid connective tissue, and is red because of hemoglobin, which is the respiratory pigment. What is the composition of blood? It is 55% plasma and 45% blood cells. Plasma, again, it is 92%, about 92% water, and about 8% vitamins, and about 1 to 2% inorganic salts. So the plasma is very important. Again, the liquid part of the blood, liquidity is because of the plasma, and it is having important ingredients also. And then the blood cells, RBC, WBC, platelet. RBC is, you have to remember, the biconcave disc-like structure. It is having no nucleus. Nucleus is not there. It is having a lifespan of 4 months, 120 days. Lifespan is formed in the bone marrow, is destroyed in the liver and spleen. The main function of RBC is to carry oxygen to all cells and tissues of the body, and it combines with the hemoglobin and forms oxyhemoglobin, which is easily broken into hemoglobin and oxygen. Okay, so in the cells and tissues. And then what is the oxyhemoglobin is the main function of the RBC, and then RBC is the smallest cell of the body, and then we come to WBC. WBC is having amoeboid structure, having cytopenia to catch the prey, catch the bacteria. It is the soldier of the body. It is having nucleus, and it is having irregular shape. So this is about WBC. Okay, they are the white blood corpuscles. RBC is also known as erythrocyte. WBC is also known as leukocytes, and platelets are very small blood cells again, and they are also not having nucleus, and their function is to help in blood clotting. So this much you have to remember in this chapter about the cells of the blood. Now, how the blood is pumped throughout the body, that is a double circulation which is there in our body, in our heart. Heart is the pumping station. All the deoxygenated blood, that is the blood without oxygen or very minimal quantity of oxygen, having more carbon dioxide, is the deoxygenated blood, which it has taken from the tissues and cells through the capillaries. So this deoxygenated blood is returning back to heart in the right auricle, and from the right auricle it is entering through vena cava, maybe superior vena cava, maybe inferior vena cava. The upwards it is superior vena cava, and the downside it is the inferior vena cava. So it is entering in the right auricle. From the right auricle the blood is pumped. When the auricles are relaxing, the blood is filling up, and when the auricles are contracting, it is pushing the blood into the, pumping the blood into the right ventricle, and from right ventricle again contraction of the valves take place, and the blood, the deoxygenated blood, is now carried to the lungs by the pulmonary artery, which is the only artery which is carrying deoxygenated blood. And then the exchange of gases take place there. The deoxygenated blood becomes oxygenated in the lungs, and this oxygenated blood is carried back to the left auricle of the heart by the pulmonary vein, which is the only vein which is carrying the oxygenated blood. Okay, and on the right side between the auricle and ventricle there are tricuspid valve, and in the left side between the auricle and ventricle there is bicuspid valve, which is also called the mitral valve. So from the left auricle the blood, oxygenated blood, will enter, pumped into the left ventricle. When it will contract, it will again pump the blood through the semilunar valves, aortic semilunar valves, into the aorta, to be distributed to all these body cells and tissues. So valves are there also when the blood is pumped out. In the right, when the blood is pumped out from the right ventricle to the lungs by and taken by the pulmonary artery, there is a valve which is called the pulmonary semilunar valve. And when it is going pumped to the body parts, there is a valve which is semilunar, aortic semilunar valve. So like this, the blood is pumped twice. Blood is having a double circulation. Blood is passing through the heart twice. One is the pulmonary part, pulmonary circulation, and the another is the systemic circulation. Pulmonary circulation means heart to lung, lung to heart. That is one part, and the other part is from heart to body, from body to heart. This is the systemic circulation. So both the circulations are forming the double circulation in human. Okay. Like this, the blood is circulated in our body, but through which vessels? Now this you have to remember the vessels. The aorta is the biggest artery, and then arteries are there. Then the aorta, arteries, arterioles. So arteries are the vessels which are carrying the oxygenated blood to all parts of the body except the pulmonary artery. And arteries are having thick walls, narrow lumen. Blood is flowing through with high pressure. So the walls of the arteries are thick, and the lumen is narrow. The space inside is narrow. Okay, because the blood is pumped out. So arteries are carrying this blood, oxygenated blood. So naturally the pressure is very high. There is no need of any valve. But veins, the wall is thin and the lumen inside is wider. Is wide lumen is there. So blood is flowing slowly and there is a need of valve there. So pocket cell valves are there. Elasticity is there in the arteries. Okay, and veins are having blood which are running slowly and with under a low pressure. And these are the differences between arteries and veins. Main differences. Okay, so veins are carrying the deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body to the heart, except the pulmonary vein, as I said earlier. Arteries are, carrying all the oxygenated blood to all parts of the body except the pulmonary artery, as I explained. So these are the blood vessels, and the ultimate vessel is the capillary, which is doing all the exchanges with the cells and tissues. So this is a single cell vessel, no muscle. So the exchange of oxygen also to the cells and CO2 from the cells to the blood is done by the capillaries. The exchange of nutrients, absorbed nutrients to the cells is also done by these capillaries, and transport of enzymes, hormones to the cells are also done by these uh, capillaries. So these capillaries are very important, which are doing the transfer or the exchange to all the cells and tissues. So this is about the vessels, blood vessels, right? Arteries, veins, and about lymph, it is a colorless fluid. Lymph is what? Lymph is 96% water and 4% WBC. Only cell which is there is WBC. It is not like other blood cells, and WBC is a specialized WBC is there. Lymphocytes, which is not only killing the bacteria but also forming antibodies. So lymphs are very important for the defense system, for our defense system. And lymph capillaries, lymph nodes are there, lymph vessels are there, lymph glands are there. So lymph vessels are not there, but lymph glands and lymph capillaries are there, lymph nodes are there. So they are in open circulation, and blood is running through vessels, arteries and veins, and that is why it is in closed circulation. So there is a difference between lymph and blood. Lymph is colorless, blood is red, and only cell in the lymph is WBC. Okay, so when the larger molecules of proteins that come out from the capillaries, what is happening? They have to be given back to the mainstream because they are also important, and it reaches to the points where blood is not able to reach. So this transportation function is also there for the lymph. Drainage is also there. As I said, bigger molecules are drained in again in the mainstream, and this is the lymph system. So composition also I told you about lymph and everything. I think I have important ones I have discussed. And blood grouping is done by Carl Landsteiner in 1900. So what he thought is the everybody in the blood, okay, in the RBCs there are antigens, and in the plasma there are antibodies. So he formed a system which is known as the blood grouping. Matching the blood groups are very, very important whenever there is a case of serious case, emergency case where blood transfusion has to be done. So that group has to be matched. Otherwise, all the cells of the blood, if the group has not matched, then what will happen? If the groups are not compatible, what will happen? The cells will club together and it will be difficult for the blood to flow and the patient will ultimately die. So what he did was he found 4 groups. So in the group A he formed Group A, Group B, Group AB, and Group O. In Group A, the antigen is A, and the antibody is B. In Group B, the antigen is B in the nucleus, and the antibody in the plasma is Group A. In Group AB, both the antigens are there. Group A and the antigen A and antigen B, both the antigens are there. Okay, and in Group O, no antibody is there. Both the antigens are there. So here in the book it has been written there, a person's blood group is A if the antigen present on the RBC is A, and B if the antigen is B. The persons whose RBCs have both types of antigens belong to the AB blood group, and those no antigens, neither A nor B, have O blood group. Okay, no antigen, but both the antibodies are there in the blood O group. So like this he formed a chart where grouping can be done easily. Blood group of donor AB, AB, A, B, AB, and O. Like this you can match the blood group of recipient. So if the blood group of donor is A, so recipient should be A or AB because antigen of A is there. So if different antigen goes inside, then there will be antibody antigen reaction, which will be very, very dangerous. So that is why the group matching is so important. So compatibility is so important. So the conclusion is that the blood of A group can be given to a person with A and AB groups, because antigen antibody reaction will not be there, because the blood of the donor is A and the blood of the recipient is AB, that is, it is also having the A antigen, right? So like this compatibility is seen. The blood of B group can be given to person with B and AB groups. The blood of AB group can only be given to AB, but a person with AB type of blood can receive blood from all types and is therefore called a universal recipient. And the blood of O group can be given to all the groups. Hence, a person with O blood group is called a universal donor, but he can receive blood from O group only. So this is how you remember the blood grouping chart, right? And then heart related conditions also you have to remember some, like cardiac arrest and heart attack. Heart attack is a condition where the blood is not getting its supply of blood. The coronary artery is blocked, so heart is not getting the blood supply. So naturally it will stop working. So that is heart attack. Because blood is required everywhere. As other organs require blood, heart also requires blood for oxygen, right? So oxygen is there in the blood, which helps in the oxidizing of the carbohydrates to release energy. Because energy is required everywhere, more so in the heart. So coronary blockage will result into a heart attack, and cardiac arrest is when the heart is not able to perform its function. The double circulation is not taking place properly. That means the cardiac arrest is there. Maybe because of the fault somewhere in the circuit, okay, in the total circulation. Maybe the valves are not working properly. Maybe some arteries or blockage is there, some in the pulmonary artery or in the pulmonary vein. Something is there. So that is cardiac arrest. Okay. So I think I have covered this chapter of circulation, the important ones, and nervous system is also, you have to remember the important things. That is the unit of nervous system is what? The neurons. Neuron structure is the longest cell of the body, and it is having cell body, which is known as cyton. It is having axon, a long process, and the nerve endings. So in this cell body, the extension of cytoplasm is there, which are forming the dendrites. So the impulse is received by the dendrites, and then through the cell body, it is passed through the axon to the another neuron. Like this, the impulse is communicated or transferred to all the body parts. So the sensory neurons are the neurons which are carrying the impulses from part to the spinal cord and brain, and motor neurons are the neurons which are carrying back the motor impulse to the affected part. So this is the sensory part, and the association neurons are doing both the work. They are in the brain and the spinal cord, because they are linking these sensory neurons to the motor neurons. Okay, so that the message is passed. So they are association neurons. So nervous system, what it does, it functions to keep us informed, enable us to remember, think, etc. Controls and harmonizes all voluntary muscular movements or activities. So how these things are done, voluntary or involuntary, these are done by the nervous system, and the unit of nervous system is the neuron. So this nerve cell is neuron, which you have to remember. Sometimes the axon of the neuron is covered by a myelin sheath, and myelin sheath is protecting the neuron and also, preventing the overlapping of impulses. And there are gaps between these myelin sheath. There are small gaps which is known as the nodes of Ranavir. And then inner side is having another cover in the neuron, which is neurolemma. So these things you have to remember, student. Node of Ranavir is there. Myelin sheath in the gaps between the myelin sheaths, and in the cytone nucleus is there. Some nucleus granules are there. Okay, so this structure you have to. And in dendrites are receiving the impulses. Dendrites are extension of the cytoplasm of the cytone or the cell body. Okay. So like this, the impulses are passed from one neuron to another, and when the axons are jumbled and bundled, they are called the nerve. Okay, nerve fibers grouped into a nerve. Okay, so this is nerve. So nerves can be also sensory nerve, motor nerve. Sensory nerve is bringing the impulses to the spinal cord or the brain, and motor nerves carrying back the motor impulses, and the mixed nerve. Motor nerves, it contains only motor neurons, and mixed nerve. How this will happen? Because sensory nerves are carrying only sensory neurons. Motor nerves are carrying only motor neurons, because it is the bundle of axons of the neurons. And mixed nerve, it is the one which carries both sensory and motor neurons. Okay, the nerve which goes to the tongue. Okay, so this is about the neurons and the nerves. And human nervous system, you have to remember the brain. There are three main parts of the brain, and brain is full of the neurons, and the three main parts of the brain are cerebrum, cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. So cerebrum has lobes, and cerebrum is responsible for what? Responsible for thinking, analyzing, remembering. Okay, movement. All these are possible because of the cerebrum, and cerebellum is maintaining the body balance when we are moving. Okay, or even in static or dynamic position, the balance is maintained by the cerebellum, and medulla oblongata is controlling all the involuntary actions of the body. So nervous system, this is the central nervous system I talked about the brain, and the spinal cord is also in the central nervous system, and there are peripheral nervous system where spinal nerves are contributing mainly. Okay, and there is in the peripheral nervous system only there is the autonomic nervous system, which is controlling the involuntary actions, and that is having two parts again, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So mainly you have to study, you have to remember about the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, spinal cord is a thread-like structure which is there in the vertebral column. It is very important because all the impulses are received by the sensory neurons, pass through the spinal cord to the brain, and then again travel back. So the in the case of reflex action, spinal cord is only responsible for sending the motor impulse back to the affected organ, affected part. So spinal cord is responsible for the reflex, all the reflex actions solely, and brain and spinal cord both are responsible for in the general communication. Okay, so it is important. Why spinal cord is important? In the brain, the outer part in the about the brain, the outer part is the cortex. Okay, so in brain you have to remember that the gray matter and the white matter. Okay, the brain has three main parts, as I said just now: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. Cerebellum is the largest portion of the brain. It is divided into two, that is right and left halves, called the cerebral hemispheres. Outer surface is folded with ridges and grooves. Each hemisphere is internally hollow. Their walls have an outer and an inner portion. The outer portion contains cell bodies of the neurons and is called grey matter. The outer portion of the brain is containing the cell bodies of the neurons and is called the grey matter because it's greyish. And the inner portion, okay, of the cerebrum is the inner portion of the cerebrum is white, so it is called the white matter. So outer portion of the cerebrum is grey matter and inner portion is white matter. But in the spinal cord it is opposite. The outer portion is white matter and in inner portion is grey matter. This you have to remember. Okay. So spinal cord is so important. Cerebellum I have talked about. This is the maintains the balance of the body and coordinates muscular activities. Okay. And now spinal cord, what it does is the control reflexes below the neck to conduct messages from the skin and muscles to the brain, to conduct commands from the brain to muscles of the trunk or torso and limbs. So these are the functions of the spinal cord, and there are 33 pairs of spinal nerves which are emitting from the spinal cord. Cranial nerves and spinal nerves. This is the somatic nervous system, the general nerves. Cranial nerves are 12 pairs of cranial nerves are there. Sensory like olfactory, for nose, optic, eyes, these are all there in the cranial nerves. Motor nerves like the ones going to the eye muscles, and mixed nerves like those coming from the face and tongue. These are all the cranial nerves. And spinal nerves are 31 pairs. See, the 10 they are distributed from the cervical region to the cervical region to the thoracic region and the lumbar region, sacral region. All these the regions are having these spinal nerves. And the messages are distributed like that. Okay, so impulses are carried to the spinal cord and back in reflex actions. There's a shortage route of these messages, these impulses to reach this spinal cord and then go back to the affected part, and that is called the spinal arc. Automatic nervous system means the voluntary actions, the involuntary actions are controlled by autonomic nervous system. Okay, so voluntary actions, for example, we wish to watch some program on TV or we do something we like to do and we do accordingly, pick up an apple or fruit, and these all are voluntary actions. Okay, and involuntary actions. For example, some particle falls into our eye and there is immediate flushing of tears. Okay, sneezing, etc. All are involuntary actions. The movement of the stomach muscles are not under our control. The heartbeats and the blood flow in the vessels all are not under our control. So they are involuntary actions. So there is a process that is controlling these involuntary actions, and if they become abnormal sometimes, then they again are restored back by the another counterpart, that is sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is controlling these motions, these actions, and parasympathetic is restoring back if sometimes they are doing some abnormal activities. Okay, reflex action I just now explained. Sudden response because of a stimulus, sudden involuntary response under which we don't have any for which we don't have any control. Like if the hands come in front of our eyes, the eyes are closed immediately. If some pinprick is there on our hand, we remove our hand immediately. We touch sometimes a hot obstacle, a hot substance, then the fingers are removed immediately. So these are all reflex actions. So the sensory neuron carries this impulse to the spinal cord, where it is changed, where it is converted into motor impulse, and the motor neuron takes it back to the effector part. So this is the root of the reflex, and it is reflex action. It is called the reflex arc also. Types of reflex action, if you remember, it will be very, very good. That is the conditional and the normal. Normal reflex action, it is just normally it happens, like putting a hand on a hot subject or pinprick on our fingers. Reflex action will be there, but conditional means it is because of some conditions. If we are, if you are seeing a thread in darkness, what we think is that it is snake, and we jump out. So this is the condition which has compelled us to take this action, to jump out of the road, because we are thinking that this rope is not rope, it is a snake. Okay, so this is the conditional reflex action. Well, we driving through a rush, we automatically the leg goes on the brake, because the condition is like that. It depends on the experiences. But in normal reflex action, the experience or learnings are not does not matter. They do not matter at all. But in conditional reflex action, the experience only matters. Okay. So stimulus, response, impulse, receptors, effectors, all we receptor which receives the stimulus and becomes the stimulus, okay, which receives the stimulus and then becomes the impulse. So effector, any muscle or gland where the response occurs. This is the effector. Right. Now diseases and first aid. Okay. So here you have to remember that diseases, bacterial diseases, the viral diseases, okay, communicable or infectious diseases which can be communicated very easily. Okay, then epidemic, pandemic. Pandemic means worldwide. Epidemic means in those areas. So and so these are the types of diseases: communicable, non-communicable, and spread of communicable. Communicable means which can be spread easily. It can be bacterial, can be viral, okay, can be due to other protozoans, malaria, etc. So direct method of infection, indirect method also is there. Touching and sharing contaminated food and water, these are all the sources of infection. Vectors means carrying the virus by some organism. Like mosquitoes are renowned vectors for malarial parasite, for dengue, for chikungunya, etc. Droplet infection may be viral and bacterial. Diseases of the respiratory tract. Okay. So the three main diseases caused by bacteria are typhoid, TB, and cholera. Cholera is by the bacteria, that is Vibrio cholerae. Okay, so lot of dehydration is caused in cholera. Vomiting and diarrhea is the symptoms. So dehydration has to be taken care immediately in cholera, and TB, and then antibiotics are given, and then TB is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is also a bacteria, and it is a long drawn disease. A long therapy is required, and typhoid is because of Salmonella typhi, which is also a bacteria. So antibiotics have to be given in typhoid, and real care has to be taken. And viral diseases, all these diseases are viral: hepatitis A, hepatitis B, hepatitis C. Okay, viruses are causing influenza. This COVID virus is a very recent virus. Okay, then dengue is also caused by virus. Malaria is there, dengue is there, chikungunya is also there, caused by virus. Dengue, malaria is caused by a virus, malarial virus, which is plasmodium, and Anopheles mosquito is caused by a malaria is actually caused by a protozoa, which is called plasmodium, and dengue is caused by a virus. Okay, so you have to remember that malaria is caused by a protozoa, and it is plasmodium. The name of the protozoa is plasmodium, which enters the human body through the bite of a female Anopheles mosquito. Dengue is a mosquito-borne disease caused by the dengue virus. It is spread by a mosquito called Aedes aegypti. Symptoms typically begin 3 to 14 days after infection. These may include high fever, headache, etc. Dengue can be prevented by the use of mosquito, and chikungunya is also a mosquito-borne disease caused by a virus which is spread by the bite of the Aedes mosquito. Okay, and the severe condition of chikungunya is severe pain, joint pains, muscle pain, which is unbearable. But 2 to 12 days it lasts, and it goes on its own. Then you have to remember about the preventive measures for diseases. Okay, so you remember 3 diseases by bacteria, 3 diseases by virus, and also some diseases caused by protozoa, which is the amoeba, which is causing amoebic dysentery. The entamoeba histolytica is the species of amoeba which is causing amoebic dysentery, right? And amoeba is a very harmful protozoa. Okay, and by worms also diseases are spread. So filaria is caused by a worm. And all other worms are there, like flatworms, roundworms, which are causing diseases. So this you have to remember. AIDS is another very important disease caused by virus. So what is the full form of AIDS? Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And the virus is named as HIV. Human immunodeficiency virus. Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome is AIDS, and HIV is the virus. Human immunodeficiency virus. So this much only you have to know about the diseases caused by the communicable diseases or caused by infections, bacteria and virus, and these uh, mosquito-borne the diseases carried, the vector-borne diseases caused by vectors. Preventive measures, public hygiene, healthy environment, vaccination is the uh, vaccination is the procedure to prevent the diseases. And Edward Jenner was the first one to use a vaccine. Okay, Jenner's findings were later confirmed by Louis Pasteur, and we developed vaccines for anthrax, chickenpox, cholera, etc. So he tried with a boy. Okay, he tested this theory on an 8-year-old boy. He got the material taken from a cowpox pustule and introduced it into the boy's body. So Edward Jenner was the first scientist to discover vaccines. Okay, vaccines are made by using kill germs, like typhoid vaccines are made by kill germs using living but weakened germs, like that vaccine for measles, tuberculosis, etc. They are not, the germs are not killed, but they are weakened. Using fully virulent living germs, vaccine for smallpox. In this vaccination, a person is inoculated with cowpox virus, which is very similar to smallpox virus. Smallpox vaccination are no more given because of the disease has almost been eradicated from India as per the latest data. Using toxoids, there are vaccines used for diphtheria and tetanus. The toxoids are extracts of toxins secreted by bacteria. Okay. Immunization is the best way to prevent these diseases. So, is an artificial way of achieving protection from infections. Okay. So you have to also remember certain points about first aid. That is, in burns, what to do, bleeding, fractures, eye, unconsciousness, swelling, poison. So if you just go through these pages, you will remember, I am sure, about these things. Main aspects I am trying to revise again. Okay. So food production also, it is not much here. You have to what are the sources of food production that you have to study here. So from microorganisms, from bacteria also we get lot of food. Okay, there are 4 kinds of bacteria: the round one, that is coccus; the rod one, that is bacillus; the spiral, and the comma shape, that is vibrio. So the use of bacteria in food industry is making curd is made by bacteria. Okay, and how curd is made, it is written here in your book. Then it is used in making cheese also. It is making tea also. Curing of tea is done with the help of bacteria. By this process, the bitterness of the tea leaves is removed and specific flavor and aroma are obtained. Alcohol and vinegar, the activity of specific types of bacteria results in the production of alcohol and vinegar. Vitamins, certain types of bacteria live in our intestine where they synthesize certain vitamins. Agriculture also, there are some bacteria, rhizobium bacteria, which fix the nitrogen from the air because plants cannot take directly nitrogen. So these rhizobium bacteria are helping in nitrogen fixation and converting them into salts in compounds which are absorbed by the root hairs along with water. So this is the role of bacteria in our food. Traditional curd is fermented whole milk. It is formed by the action of the bacteria. First of all, the curd is fermented by the bacteria on the lactose present in the milk. The most commonly used bacteria in the process are Lactobacillus bulgaricus. So eating curd is becoming increasingly popular. Curd is one of the fastest growing food. So it is made by the help of the bacteria. Okay. Fungi, we eat mushrooms. Though mushrooms are very poisonous, but the mushroom which is not poisonous, which is shape, which is safe. We eat them and they are having a very high nutrient value. And yeast is also a fungus which is having an immense importance, economic importance. Yeast is used as a food, contains vitamin B group, E group, and 15% protein in breweries, because anaerobically it respires and it produces like alcohol, so which is used in brewery industries, in bakeries also. CO2, their air spaces are formed when CO2 rises through the dough as a result of fermentation by the yeast mix in it. Yeast also play an important role in the manufacture of vitamins and proteins. Okay, so these points you have to remember in this. And agriculture foods, kharif and rabi crops, you have to remember. Kharif is grown in the rainy season and rabi in the winter season. The main kharif crop is what? The rice is the most important kharif crop in India, which is grown in rain-fed areas. Rabi crops main is wheat, which is grown in winter season. And what is green revolution? Here it is written how the crops yield was increased. Manifold increase was there in this green revolution, because fertilizers were used, chemicals were used to increase the fertility of the soil. So there was a revolution in the crop production, and high yielding varieties were achieved. HYV. In horticulture, we develop vegetables, fruits, ornamental plants, flowers, etc. And in animal husbandry, we are doing what? We are rearing animals, livestock. So there can be milk yielding or milch animals, meat and egg yielding. So these types you have to remember in this particular chapter. So I think the types of cows and these things that you have to learn, you have to remember, that you will do when you go through this chapter. Okay. I think this has ended. All the chapters have been covered. I've tried to cover the important points only. So I think I should thank you for your patience. Thank you very much. God bless you all.